You've tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Viel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, humor-filling, empowerment-moving, life hacks, and motivational tips for all of the medically doltish people in your life. I'm Dominique Viel, founder of InvisiYouth and the host of InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, and today is Season 4, Episode 42. I can't believe we're going to be hitting a 50-episode milestone coming up, and today is a very special day for me and InvisiYouth for two special reasons. Number one is that this is a topic we have gotten DM'd about a lot over 6 years that I have been running InvisiYouth, and number two is that this special guest is very special to me, and you will be learning why when I introduce them. So today we are talking all about education, and I know that sounds like it's going to be a really boring lecture, like you're in a classroom. I promise it's not. You know I don't allow those sorts of things on our podcast, but we're going to be making it fun, talking about how chronic illness and disability does impact being in the education system, your experience, how you can get education support or accommodations, and really making other teachers or supporters of you and classmates be really empowered by supporting young people like yourselves. And our guest expert today is a special education teacher and education advocate for a lot of young people with disabilities and their students. It's Erica-Lee Viel DeSimone. Yes, that last name sounds familiar in the middle because it is my older sister. And it's weird now introducing her with her new married last name as well. We're both looking at each other like, nah.
You're hearing it.
Erica graduated at the top of her class at the same university I did at St. Joseph's with a BA in special education and general education, and got her master's in education from the College of New Jersey. She's been teaching for over 9 years, currently spending the last 2 years in classroom support as a teacher in kindergarten, but her experience stretches beyond the little kiddies. She's taught what are a bunch of acronyms that I know all the teachers will know: RCR, ICR, LLD, and has been an education advocate and more. Also, alongside one of her friends and a fellow teacher, Nicole, they both run a special education advocacy platform on Instagram called Special Space in Our Heart. So you can check her out over there as well. She's passionate for each student, knowing that they have the tools and knowledge to advocate for themselves in and out of the classroom and to reach their full potential, which obviously mirrors what I do on the physical disability and chronic illness space. So we are going to make going to the classroom fun and adaptable for all of us. So Erica, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
This is kind of weird. I feel like we have nicknames. I'll tell all of the listeners and viewers. I call Erica Cheeky and she calls me Mickey. So it's very odd to call her Erica and to listen to her call me Dominique. But we're going to be professional adults for this podcast for all of you.
Yeah, which is actually the first accommodation we made because I could not say Dominique. So I said Mickey.
Exactly. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to be testing Erica's educator brain in Top Search.
Top Search. You got the Top Search.
So often people will say to Google it when it comes to a question you have with chronic illness, disability, or even in education. I know Erica is nodding her head. So since today we are focusing on education and how these school structures and more are built, we want to help other people be able to fight those different stigmas. And Erica's going to be answering some of our top questions and giving us our autofill answers. So I'm also going to preface this that obviously, if you haven't noticed from our accents, that Erica and I are both in America, and Erica teaches in the American school system. So I will be trying to preface as much overarching into the international community that are listening or watching on YouTube. And also when we speak of our age bracket being 13 to 35, when we speak of university, it is obviously that over 18 demographic. So if we say college, it is university for everyone else. And our high school is also secondary schooling for most of the other countries we work in, just so we can get the American lingo down as Erica and I get chatting about school. So I know, like I had mentioned with young adults, our big portion of our community from 13 to kind of 23 or 24 are all in some form of schooling. So for you, what is sort of the Cliff Notes version of what it is to have accommodations when you're in school, and what differentiates it when those accommodations are for medical or a physical disability?
Yeah, so most people, when they come into school and they have something that's like a physical disability or physical difference that impacts their learning, typically what is issued is a 504. So that's under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that basically allows the student to have access to accommodations, which can entail extended time on a test. It can also be whether have adapting equipment, so having access to an adaptive seating arrangement, whether if a individual is deaf or blind, having access through those services, having someone from outside come inside to be able to adapt the materials and equipment for them, whether that's enlarging the font or using different voice to text materials and setting that up on their computers as well as their teachers' computers.
Yeah, that's really true. I'll always say the biggest thing is that in the quotes, if your physical health or disability seems to be putting you at a disadvantage in the education system from healthy, non-disabled, in quotes, classmates, that looking into that is really important. And kind of going off of that, the next question I wanted to ask is, what would you say from students you've had and their parents or guardians, or even when you've done advocacy work, what are kind of signs that you've seen as a teacher that a student could benefit with any form of accommodations?
Well, I always encourage parents to, when they have their child and are not quite sure about their placement, because there is so many, like you said before, there's so many acronyms. If I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to know what a doctor's saying. If I'm not an astrophysicist, I'm not going to know what a physicist is saying. So I'm going to be bringing my expert with me to basically be my translator and navigate me through that process. So my role is to encourage the parents to see those classrooms, ask to observe those rooms, to see what the school has access to, what are the resources, having access to the director of special services, reaching out to them. And reaching out just to like the township as well, and seeing what materials and resources they have available to them and what connections you can make. So I think that that is most important when you're trying to decide what accommodations they have readily available and what accommodations are necessary. And there's a big difference. They use the accommodations modifications. Some interchange those terminologies, especially if a student that has like a physical disability or an intellectual disability or invisible illness that would impact their learning in any way. It depends if you're going to have an IEP, which is individualized education plan, or a 504. So those are just two separate avenues in America that we use. And I currently teach in New Jersey, so there's also state to state differences as well. But I think that modifications, what you're focused on is that you're changing the curriculum in order to meet the students' needs. So you're changing the content in which they're going to learn, whereas accommodations is leveling the playing field. So having access to extra time doesn't make it the test easier for that individual, which is a misconception. It's just that's what they need in order to be as successful as possible. And even with my kindergartners, like having those conversations early, fair versus equal. I'll treat you fairly, but you may not always be treated equally because everyone needs different things. And I think that's very important starting at a young age.
Yeah, and I think that even just spreads over into the chronic illness and disability space, is that we always say that we want an equal playing field, that because we're at a disadvantage, because in this space, the education system is built by healthy, non-disabled people for that majority of students, we're already working against a lot of the structures that are just built to not adapt to what our medical needs, our physical disability needs are. So you need to have, like you said, accommodations or modifications to kind of level that playing field out. And really knowing, like, if your if your illness is impacting your success, I knew for myself when I started to get accommodations with my chronic illness, it was because I had an injury. So there was a shift between a healthy time period and a non-healthy time period.
Pretty sure I was there for that.
Oh my God, were you? It was so easy to be aware of how long it took me to do things. Walking between classes was very hard. I was late to classes and getting written up. And those are things that weren't my fault. So there were a lot of elements of things, or I was missing a lot of portions of the day of school going to hospitals or going to doctors. And so it got to a point that my guidance counselor stepped in and said, I think we need to have your teachers be a bit more flexible with you because of what your health needs. And that was the first time, because I knew my grades were being impacted, and it was things that had nothing to do with my ability to be in the classroom. So that's really a really good thing. And kind of a different point is most of our audience is leaving the secondary or high school schooling, and they're in universities of any sort, whether it's master's or undergraduate in all different countries. And so for you, I know the big thing that I noticed getting accommodations, or you have done with work for advocacy work with university students, is that you kind of go in very much independently requesting what you need for accommodations, because what was sort of given to you structurally in lower education is kind of wiped, and it's a clean slate once you go to university. So kind of to answer that, this top search question is, what are kind of the quick things that you would say, these are the ways that you can get support in university for disability accommodations or your illness?
Yeah, I think that is a very important facet to drill into, especially those high school age students. I've always come from the proponent that children with a 504 or with an IEP should be attending those parent-teacher conferences, those IEP meetings, annual reviews, those 504 meetings. So that way they hear the language being utilized, also visually seeing how many people they have on that team for them at a young age. So that way when they get to high school or even middle school, it's so astonishing. Even students that I tutored, I'm like, you can ask for extra time, right? Like, make sure your teacher's giving that to you. You have the right for it. And they're like, no, Miss Vale, I had that in 5th grade with you. I don't have it at middle school. I'm like, what?
You still have it.
Like, you still have it. And I'm like Googling through like what our like IEP system is called, IEP Direct. I'm like, they didn't get declassified. They still have it. And it's the conversation that, whether it's the misunderstanding of the parents not really knowing how to have that conversation with their kid, or if it's the kid genuinely not understanding what they have access to or what this formal document is, that they don't even know that they're not even getting serviced if they're in a classroom and they're like, well, I didn't have enough time to finish. The amount of times I ran into that when I work with the kid in middle school, or when I see them again when they're in high school, and doing just like remedial instruction, work with them, or even just getting prepped for those SATs, ACTs, and that college application process, which you want to really look at those schools that have the programs and the disability centers that are available to you. Not all colleges and universities have the same resources. They need to have them, especially if you are a state school. But if you go to a private school, for example, like St. Joseph's University's private Jesuit school, you would have to make sure that they do have a system in place for that, because they don't always have a system in place for that too.
Say it again.
Yes, they don't always have a system in place. And you want to make sure like you have I remember and I know I'm jumping around because there's just so much to talk about on this topic, and something I'm very passionate about is your child or your teenager or young adult does not know what they have access to, they don't know how to self-advocate for themselves. So you are trying to teach them to be an advocate, be responsible, but without giving them those tools at a young age, they're not going to have it when they get older. So it's very possible. And they're like, oh no, they're 5, they're 6. They don't know. They do know. I mean, like, the amount of what my students know how to advocate for at 5 years old, I mean, I can't wait to see what they can advocate for and say when they are in high school. Like I even say them, like, I can't wait to see your kid in high school and what they're going to accomplish, because you can just see it at such a young age. I think that going online, having access to interviews with the university is very important. Even like campus, like location, there's older buildings on campuses that don't have, because of, and you might know the date, I'm not 100% what the year was, but after a certain year, you had to have adaptive, like wheelchair accessibility, access to elevators.
Well, the ADA is in America, the American Disability Act is 30 years old, I believe. Last year was its 30th anniversary. I could be totally wrong. Tell me.
73, I think was the Rehabilitation Act.
All right, that's not 30 years.
We might have to Google that one.
Yeah, drop it in the comments how dumb Dominique is.
Just like you said before, we'll Google it. But at least we're knowledge about it.
We know it's less than 100 years. And that is, if in the States, it's not even that old. In the UK and Canada and Australia, their disability programs are as young as ours is. And that's a big, like you said, what I even did as well when I toured universities is anytime I had a physical tour of a university, I asked to set up a meeting at the end of my tour with their disability center and spoke to them. And for me, I have a chronic illness. So a big thing for a chronic illness young adult is them not realizing that disability centers would work for them, because you don't associate, for some people with chronic illness, myself at 19 or 18, I didn't think I had a disability because I was chronically ill, but I needed to have accommodations because being on a campus, as we were both in Philadelphia, which is a major city, I knew I was going to be late to class on days I couldn't feel my leg or I had to use a cane. Getting between classes when I didn't have an hour break between lectures, I needed to let my professors be aware that I was going to be delayed, and for me to not be locked out of the room, that I was the special someone that could knock on the window and I was unlocked and allowed in where other people were not. So, and because those were things against that were out of my control. So speaking to them about all of those different scenarios was super important. You can tell very quickly what universities are going to be more flexible or adaptive to what you need and different situations if they've dealt with it before. So that's huge when it comes to it. And I always recommend, before you agree to a university and accept, to definitely get letters from your main doctors when it comes to your illness, because your doctor's letters will allow you to have access to more elements of your accommodations. My doctor letters I joked to them, I was like, I am not this chronically ill, guys. I'm not this sick. They're like, there are days you are, and we need to make sure that we are mentioning you at your worst days. This isn't explaining you in an interview trying to get you a job, Dominique. This is you getting that. And so I would say that's a definite answer for what to look for in a university setting with an illness, because you want to have a good experience. You don't want 4 years of hell trying with your health or to decline it too.
Well, even just being on, because I know you and I both transferred, so we have the experience of basically 3 universities.
Yes.
So like where I initially was at Susquehanna University in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. And that was a very like flat campus. You didn't have to like go up hills or things like that. But then you went to St. Joe's, Hawk Hill, and you had inclines, and, you know, maybe they're not deemed steep, but for someone that had adaptive,
they were steep for me, Erica. They were steep for me.
Well, I still remember when you called me. I think you called me first, because I think you tried to see if I was on campus that day, and it was either, I think your hip dislocated when you were walking out, and it was like the lacrosse team you said was coming up, and you're like, I can't move. So like, there's just things like that where people might stop and stare, but I think it's just being kind to everyone. It goes such a far way, because you just really genuinely don't know what someone's dealing with, and just stopping to help. So, I mean, like in that situation, like, you can find the humor in it later, but in the moment you're just like in panic mode and like want to fix it, make it better, and suck it up and move on. So I think there's also like being mindful of like classroom placements when you have a 504, if you need access to, like, we had to move our whole class to a different building one year because we had someone with CP or cerebral palsy, and they also had braces. So they had to walk, using their braces, and it was not conducive because they had to have access to an elevator and wheelchair accessibility with the ramps, because stairs were also not the best. So we had to move our whole class for, that purpose. Given we didn't know that purpose, I only knew because, we just being in the education field, you're friends with typically a bunch of women,
everybody,
girls. So like you knew like the 5 guys in the program. So like you just kind of all knew like, what was happening and what was going on. So that was like, one avenue of like, when services were being met, because, they advocated for themselves. Like, I can't be in this old building that has no access to anything. It was the one like with the cast. I forget the name of that one with like castle.
Oh, yep. Up on the hill. Yep. The one with the bad elevator that I had to hop up the stairs sometimes.
Yes,
yep.
Memories.
Oh my God. Yeah. And that's really, that's a good point to like end the segment on, is that wasn't something the entire group class you were in knew. It was something that was in her accommodations for need, and they just made the switch happen. Yeah. And it wasn't this huge issue with the entire class, which was important.
And I know you and I talked about it, but like, keep in mind, like, professors aren't actually like educators. They didn't go to school to become a teacher. Like, some of this is like a different field and whatnot. So what you think, like, I still remember a professor saying to me, and I did like those summer classes when it was like that speed round of like US history since 1871, like a really random time. And he was like, I'm a historian. I am not, an educator. So like, I'm sitting there like, but I need help. Like, you're like teaching at a
you
rapid
need to teach me.
And like, I need help. But like, that was like the epiphany moment for me, when I was like, these people aren't actually designed to be teachers. So like, when you're talking to someone at that level versus when you're young in school, like, you really have to advocate for yourself, because you can run into a nice professor and a not so nice professor.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good stopping point on this segment before we transition to our next one, because as you can tell, when I get chatting with my sister, we can be quite chatty, which is perfect for the segment that has coming up. But for all of you guys that have made it through this first segment with us, we just want to remind you to make sure that you have subscribed to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions. I will give us a quick pause of silence for you to do that, whether you are on any audio podcast platform or on YouTube watching me and my lovely, beautiful sister. Ready? All right. That was good. That was good. Dead air space for us. I hope you clicked that button for us. And now we're going to go into our next segment. Chat me up.
Chat me up.
Hey, want to chat?
That's what we've been doing.
Yeah. Obviously, Erica and I can chat all the time. And I was like, we got 3 more segments to go through, Erica. And so with Chat Me Up, we are going to be talking about how, for you guys as young adults handling the education system, and especially with teachers, how to get the support you need, how to feel like you can advocate to teachers and really get that support. So we'll be picking Erica's teacher brain to get you guys to feel the most confident when you have to talk to your teachers about things that you need or would make your education smoother. So I know for myself and for so many people that are young adults with chronic illness or disability, it really does play into your schooling, and it can feel really challenging to sometimes have to challenge the teacher if they're not meeting your medical needs. So I know for myself, I didn't have traditional accommodations until I was in my last year of high school, and then when I was in university. So a lot of it was me meeting with a teacher one-on-one at the start of the semester, and me explaining my health needs to them with documents I had from my guidance counselor, and then telling them the things I needed them to adapt to me on, whether that was extra time or tests, getting delays on papers, or I was allowed to show up late to class or to leave early because I used a cane and hobbled, for better or for worse, when my leg was blue with my nerve damage and I couldn't walk. So for you as a teacher, what would you say are good talking points for students that are realizing their teachers might not be meeting their needs, and they have to either initially address them or bring it up when they've been dealing with a bit of issues because they're not being met?
Wow. So that's a loaded question.
Be in mind, Erica's still a teacher, so she's like, let me think.
I'm going to take my earrings. No, just kidding. So I think that the best thing is to just go in very professional. And I say this like for a high school student, like, yes, you're still teenage, your brain is developing still. There's still room for error, but go in with the mindset of like, you're asking the teacher for something because there is still that level of respect that is, expected. I've seen that paradigm shift, whereas they're not as intimidated, I would say, like if a teacher were to say something, like they're willing, like teenagers or 5-year-olds will just talk back. So I think that there's also that level of, showing that you are being respectful, asking for what you need in the most polite manner, and just, also documenting, like saying like on this test, you didn't give me extra time, or, hey, like I'm supposed to only have like 5 questions per page because I need it like enlarged. But you gave me like smaller font. Like, is there any way I can like take it a different day when you have it? So just being able to address the problem, but also have a readily available solution to that problem.
And I think that's something I would even jump in and agree with, is that I always say, I know it feels like a lot of additional legwork you have to provide to, like you said, to have those solutions available, or to be transparent and say, I don't know how we solve this a way you're comfortable with. Because a big thing we'll always say is for teachers, especially with one of my illnesses is a rare disease. I could give everything from WebMD, a medical journal, letters from my doctors, and multiple teachers in high school and even in university had no clue what I was talking about with what I needed. And a lot of times my illnesses were invisible. So they didn't know what was happening neurologically or cardiac or with my nervous system that inhibited me from doing things on certain days, or a big thing for me was needing extra time on exams because I'm left-handed. I have nerve damage in my left hand, and it takes me longer because my hand will go numb, it will muscularly lock, or it's painful, and I need to then switch to right-handed, and it needs to obviously be legible to people, or I need to type the exams where I need to be on a computer in a center, which does not allow me to have access to all of my stuff. So like you said, to be able to realize you've been dealing with issues or you're running into those roadblocks, and to kind of set aside that time. I think for you as well, would you even suggest when you've worked with your older population that when the students or even their parents joined in and said, hey, can I come in early, or can I see you during my lunch or your prep, or when you have office hours, if you're in university, and run this by you, and even send it to them in an email if talking about it is uncomfortable for you? Would you say that allows you as the teacher to have a bit of prep time going into it, so it's not just the student kind of word vomiting all of their accommodation needs and you're trying to think of things on the fly?
Yeah, I always encourage my college students or university students to email when they know who their professor is, email them in advance. So that way you can meet with them during their office hours, because they just get a list of, hey, you have a student in your 8:30 class. Here's all of their, needs. There you go. They don't know anything about it's not disclosed what your condition is, or chronic illness, invisible illness, mental health, or your, intellectual status. So you have to take ownership and say like, hey, this is what's going on. If you choose to. I find it when you are confident and comfortable in your own skin and being able to say, this is what I have, this is what I need, and using those I statements are very pertinent in those discussions with the professor, but also taking that accountability to reach out first So you can introduce yourself. I think that would be the best, avenue. It's a little bit different when you are under 18 because, you still have the parents that are reaching out in regards to like your guardian.
Those damn parents. No, I'm kidding.
I think
Erica's like, I have 5-year-olds. I only deal with parents.
Parents. Yes. No. And like, fortunately, like, I mean, I pride myself on building a strong rapport with the families, because you have to bridge that home and school gap. And if you're not working together, you're working against each other, and it's just not consistent for any kid, child, or young adult. So I think that is very, and I know I'm saying a lot, but I think that's very important for college students to take that time to email them. When I work with a high school student, I tell them to just like, hey, like, what homework did you have? Did you miss something? Or did you finish this paper? Like, let's have your teacher take a look at it. Okay. Like, they're all like, whatever, it's done, period. Like, I'm like, no, we need to reread it and go over it and email the teacher, because they were nice to give you an extension. So they, were taking that effort and giving you an extension on top of another extension. So let's also make the effort on our end so that way they can see it too. Teachers, educators, professors are more likely to meet you halfway when you come halfway to begin with, and they're seeing that effort.
That is so true.
I even have my high school students email, my middle school students email their teacher and like CC me, and like at least the email is coming from them and not from me. It's just showing that extra step of ownership over their education, and just sounds corny, but taking pride in your work. So really,
I was waiting for a teacher pun to come in, Erica. I was waiting. And even kind of going off of that, I know a big thing I dealt with, and we hear all the time when it comes to accommodations or requesting for modifications from teachers, because a lot of young people, even somebody who has diabetes per se, they might have to walk out of the room for insulin or to check something or their pump. And they don't want to be, if they have an Omnipod, they don't want to be checking it in class. So you need to be allowed to step out and leave when that happens. So we'll always say, know those situations and bring it up, or be proactive in bringing it up. But also that worry, which is what I was going to ask you as a question, is we always have so many young people that feel that their accommodations, that they don't want to use them because they feel like, well, I don't need them all the time, or I don't want to feel like I'm riding a coattail, or like I'm being given things for free, because they might have other students saying that to them, that they're getting extra passes, which makes you feel self-conscious. So for students dealing with those moments, or teachers as well, how do you kind of suggest you navigate those conversations when, even as a teacher, when you have felt that students aren't utilizing their accommodations or utilizing the modifications that you have discussed with them?
Yes. Well, it gets challenging the older they get. I will say that, because I have a range of experience with being in a physical classroom from kindergarten through 7th grade, and then working with students from 7th grade through 21 plus. So it does get harder as they get older. I think it's also the stigma builds as you get older. I encourage, parents to come in and talk about their child's disability, whether it be physical or intellectual, especially when it is physical. When it's something that is visible and obvious, I think that it's best to address it head on. And here's the elephant in the room, because at a young age, the kids are intimidated. They don't want to not be nice. They just don't know how to interact with it. They're like, what is this? So I think that the inclusivity that is happening more lately, and I feel like with even mental health, I feel like the UK had a lot of mental health, they were kind of the front runners on it. And now America's kind of catching up. to being where they are and just being more accepting of it. So I think that just still telling them that, hey, like, listen, if you need this, send me an email, or if you need this, write me a post-it note, stick it on my desk. Just making it more casual, less noticeable, less helicoptering. Helicoptering does not work with young adults, preteens, or high school ones.
I hated it. I hated it.
Of responsibility and freedom. And the more, it's hard. It's a balance because you want to give like that rope, that leash. And then at the same time, you want to support them. So then what some people do is they bring it in way too much. And then you're hovering, then you're helicoptering. Well, what are they going to do when you're helicoptering? They're going to pull away further versus here's my leash. I still have you as a support. I'm still there for you to catch you if you fall, but I'm not hovering you. I'm going to give you your breathing room. So when you make those mistakes, I'm here for you. So I think that that's the best way to approach it, that visual versus like, let me hold on tighter and pull you closer, given it's probably out of the goodness of people's hearts, honestly, because they want to help. But it's not allowing them to make room for error, learn from their mistakes and pick up the pieces when they break. So I think that having those conversations with your teachers and knowing the person, like, for example, we're sisters. So I know for you, if I'm going to sit here and talk at you and get all emotional, it's not going to work for you. But you eventually will come to me and be like, hey, this is what's on my mind. Or, hey, here's a little Post-it note. This is what I need.
Is this a therapy session? What is happening?
What I'm saying is you have to know the person. Like I would tell my husband something different. He would talk to me till he's blue in the face because that's what he needs to vent and talk about things. But for you, you might send me a quick text when you're ready. Yeah. I just know that different approach. So I think it's just learning your audience too.
Yeah. And I think for students, it's really, especially like you said, it's very different for young adult students for that high school, that 15 to 25 age group that are in an education program. Is I knew for myself, and I hear it all the time, is I felt like a burden, and I felt guilty when I needed extra time on papers or thesis or projects, or I was in group projects and I knew I wasn't going to be able to deliver on a date. My group projects, God help us all. I hated them all. When I knew that I was exceptionally private, Erica can attest to that when it came to my illnesses. My professors knew the bare minimum about my health that they needed. I only told them enough to get what I needed out of the accommodations or modifications in the room with my education. But every time I pushed my health too far and I had to go through flare-ups and setbacks that ended up hurting my education longer because it took me longer to get back to where I was capable. That happening repetitively my first year in university was where I went, I need to just use it, and I have to, on my end, protect my privacy. And that was where I was very adamant with my professors that I want to provide you the best work. And if I need to use certain things, I do not want you mentioning any of these things in class. If it's made as a joke from another classmate, I really need you to shut that down or ignore them and move the conversation. So that was something in my initial talks. And I will always say to people who are very conscious of that side, and we'll talk about it actually after the intermission, the social side of getting education support and how that impacts it socially. But that's a big thing. That's kind of the last thing I was going to say in this segment before our intermission, was really for young people, when they talk to teachers, the way you like your health or disability addressed publicly is the way you address it to those teachers. And they will, like you said, they just want you to succeed. So you have to have trial and error. And if the teachers aren't meeting you that halfway, that's the benefit of school structures having directors and higher ups and guidance counselors, that there are systems in place that you can take your needs as far as it needs to go for you to get what you need out of an education structure and an education that you are either paying for or that you would like to have.
That person first language, like you're saying, is so important. Like, you wouldn't say, oh, the deaf girl. You would say, oh, this student who is deaf, or this individual who has autism, not the autistic, student I have in my class. You don't want to ever preface that, disability first. It's always person first language, because that's ultimately who you are teaching is the person. You're not teaching the disability.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good ending point going into our intermission segment with my sister, with Erica. So before we go into the intermission where Erica gets to tell us a story, I want to just remind all of you guys, thanking you for following InvisiYouth Chat Sessions or subscribing to us on any podcast platforms or YouTube to watch the visual show, and also supporting our nonprofit. This is one of our virtual resources we provide every month. So it will pop up on your screen below, and it's in the description notes as well, our donation link, because 100%, Erica's pointing on the bottom as well, 100% of all of our donations go towards providing these resources and programs for free for young adults around the world who are living with chronic illnesses and disabilities. So we immensely appreciate that. And now we're going to go into my favorite segment where I can relax with my drink and have Erica tell us all a story, guys. It is So That One Time.
So that one time.
All right, Erica, tell me a story.
Once upon a time.
No, I am not a 5-year-old in your class.
A story, just about anything. Any story?
Yep. Surprise me. See if you can surprise your sister. Let's go.
Oh, well, you pretty much know all my secrets. Yeah, I mean, story time. Well, I'm thinking probably like one of my best stories I have is actually about extrinsic motivation. And I think you might know where I'm going with this.
Sounds fascinating.
It is about the time where my sister was too intimidated to shoot a basketball hoop.
Oh, yes.
And I motivated her because, I knew I always wanted to be a teacher. And
very
so
true.
I said, Dominique, every time you try to make a basket, I will give you $5. And every time you make a basket, I'll give you $10. So here's Dominique, like, okay, now that there's money on the table. She made like 6 baskets in that game. And if you know my sister, like, she's a tennis player. She is definitely not a basketball player. And she made like, I was broke for, my, was I like eighth grade self?
Yes, I remember. Yep. Because I was in 6th grade. I was 12. And for those, if you only listen to the podcast, and even if you watch on YouTube, I am only 5'2.5". So I am quite short to play basketball.
I love that you throw the half in there.
Because if you're under 5'5", every centimeter counts. And I say this to even my doctors, everything counts. But yes, I never liked to shoot. I was always very intimidated. So that was Erica's encouragement.
It was extrinsic motivation. So for anyone listening, positive reinforcement always, people, works. It'll make you broke. So probably that's like our best, like one of my favorite stories is just like, between like you and I always thought that was funny.
Oh, I love that.
And the fact that you and I were a cheerleader.
Yes. Oh boy. I mean, should I, we'll see if I can work my editing magic and pop up a photo of Erica and I in our cheerleading uniforms that were from the 80s that we wore. And
that she is, wanted to be in every yearbook photo possible. So she was like, I'm going to be on the cheerleading team because my sister's the captain that year.
And I was. And
that uniform.
And I became captain 3 years later just because I'm type A and I needed to complete it and also become captain. So yep, we'll pop that throwback photo up probably. If not, it'll be on our Instagram on our post about this episode for sure. Right. Okay. And we're going to transition out of that story and go into one of our favorite new segments that we have, the Teeniatrics Way of Life.
Teeniatric Way of Life.
All right, teenatric way of life. We are going into what I had mentioned before the intermission is us getting to have talking about handling the social side of you needing accommodations or modifications because of your illness or disability in school. Because what a lot of, especially from the education system or teachers or even parents, a lot of people don't realize that young people sometimes don't want to take the support that they're being given because of the social element of how friends or classmates will handle it. In the beginning, I definitely dealt with that. I think my harder shell became a bigger support for me as I aged with my chronic illnesses because my education was my priority. So I would always immediately shut down jokes very quickly and make people uncomfortable to make jokes at me when it came to my accommodations or needs so that I would just ignore it. But that was years of hardening. It was that's why we have a podcast as a program, everyone. Let's be real here. I needed to stay in my strengths when it came to InvisiYouth. But for you, what are some tips you would give to teens or young adults that are having friends asking about their accommodations or why they're getting different treatment in class?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I mean, I think honesty, I don't want to say honesty is the best policy, but
another teacher pun, everybody.
I think that at least I'm not talking. Sometimes when I come home from a day, I like to
she rhymes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm shocked she hasn't rhymed. It's been like 45 minutes and she hasn't rhymed for us yet. So I'm going to jinx us.
Yeah, this is my first podcast. I'm like learning all my things I'm going to critique myself on later. I think that what's best, most important is just being comfortable with your level of that you want to share. So be comfortable and confident. Own who you are as a person is first and foremost. I think honestly, both of our parents did such a great job with that, encouraging us to be who we are as a person and really fostering that development and basically having even confidence in us when we didn't have confidence in ourselves. And I think that is very important. So if, you're being treated differently at home, and I know even in your community, the amount of times friends have shared with you, just even their own families not being so accepting of themselves. And then it makes them even that much more self-conscious. And I know I can't, say any bad words on the show, but kind of who cares? You know what I mean? Just kind of have that attitude. I wish I've had that attitude younger. And it's not going to matter what those people in high school think of you. It's going to matter what you did with your education. It's going to matter with all those opportunities you have and what you did with those. So I think to just do what you need to do. And if someone asks hey, why do you get that? My best thing is just say, sometimes you can always play dumb too. Be like, I don't know. This teacher just lets me have it. Or being like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. You can always take that approach and just really give those neutral, ambiguous terms, not even address it. Or just say hey, sometimes I write a little bit slower because, depending on my day, I have, some medical things going on. So it's just helpful. You could play the chill person. There's many different personas. And I feel like I'm describing multi people, but it just
Erica has 12 personalities coming out. These are the 12 person.
It's just, I could be a chameleon because you have to blend in your surroundings. So I think that is just sometimes you learn how to do that to navigate it. But as long as you stay true to who you are, that is the most important. So you don't get lost in that shuffle.
Yeah, I'll always say for people, what we teach at InvisiYouth, you'll actually end up learning more of these things coming into our next month, little sneak peek with the new program we have coming out. But one thing that we teach is we have different theories. It's going to be in our InvisiYouth Galaxy Glossary. You'll be learning all these different monthly theories and mindsets. And one of them that will eventually be in that are guaranteed is the faucet theory, which we have is basically turning the amount of water pressure you has allows different amounts of water, whether it's a drip or a full pressure amount of water coming out of a faucet. And so you can share as little or as much information as you want when people are asking. And I know like you said, I was very, very private. So when friends of mine or other classmates would make comments about accommodations I had, or teachers coming up to me only during exams if they saw me struggling. And I've had numerous times teachers before I had accommodations or modifications, they would take different pages of the exam away from me and say, come back during lunch or come in early tomorrow or can you stay late? And they would whisper it during the exam. And I would only have 1 or 2 pages where there were 5 or 6. And I would come in later because they could see I was dealing with a flare up during the exam or class, and people would come over. And a lot of times bullying is a very serious term to use, but it is a lot of that sort of that nitpicking and poking and that joking insults that can come from other people. And I'll always say that some people are curious and you can gauge that tone from other classmates and you can share as much or as little as you want. I always would just kind of say I was chronically ill, and the benefit of using the system is a lot of people were uncomfortable around me talking about my health. So I just mentioned, I need different things because I'm sick. Most people backed up from the conversation because they didn't know what to say from it. Yes. So I always had that. And I also had a lot of people when they would make jokes about me getting extra time on things, or why was I allowed to show up late to class? My initial throwback was always, well, I'll trade my chronic illness for your healthy body and you can take all of the accommodations I have, which is very true. But like you said, it's really figuring out how much you want to share about your situation, dodging it as much as you can. And I think also if it starts to border into a bullying category about what you're being provided, that's where you really need to interject to your teacher, even if it is in an email after class, so it's not something brought up in the moment. Even if a teacher brings it up, like you might even say, if a teacher asks in the middle of class, hey, what's going on? A lot of times I would even just dodge it and say nothing, but then I would leave and go see them during lunch, because I just wouldn't want to address it in the middle of class. So I think that's a big thing for people to remember as well.
I also I did have some professors too, just depends on the person, on their syllabus, they would give out their cell phone number too, which I felt like I've seen it more for, I would say, the less seasoned, I won't use the word older, but less seasoned professors would be more casual with giving their phone numbers out, as long as it wasn't abused. I think that's also send them a quick text or be like, hey, it's not happening today for me. And just communication is the biggest thing. They say in communication in relationships, your communication with your coworkers and at work, communication with what your needs, wants, and needs, wants, and desires are, that is very important. Like you're saying. And actually one of the things in college we had to write about was, what is your educational bias as a teacher? And mine was actually bullying. Because I said, I feel like if I saw a bully in my class, that would be my bias. I would be biased against that individual because of personal experiences. And I just won't want to go into protect mode. So it was all, that assignment was very purposeful because you had to block down those biases. As a teacher, you can see a lot with the kids, but you can't be, biased against anyone. You have to, be very Switzerland. So it's just, that can be challenging at times. So I think that was a very useful assignment because, I would want to protect those who weren't being treated appropriately, especially by their peers.
And what would you say, even as a teacher, for I'm thinking what we call as allies, so the classmates or friends or siblings who are not chronically ill or disabled, when you go into a classroom as a student and you see someone getting accommodations or getting support, or when I was going in with my cane or braces on, you would either get a lot of students would be staring, they would interject, it would interfere with class. And that sometimes would make me intimidated or uncomfortable to use my medical equipment because I didn't like the attention. Yeah. So from the teacher perspective, what would you say to other students who are more on the ally side when it comes to being supportive of students who have chronic illness or disability?
I encourage anyone working with those individuals with chronic illnesses or disabilities to be proactive and not reactive to any situation.
Yeah.
So
we use the
something
same phrase.
Yeah. It's something I strive by because like I mean, I'm a very type A person. I could tell this is like the connection symbol for like, reading connection to you. So like I have a connection to my sister because it's, we're both very type A. I'm a planner. So I want to plan things out. So if I know that I have a student coming in that, potentially is going to be late or whatnot, I would maybe leave it in like my pocket at the door or something like that so they can grab it and just go to their seat. They don't have to make that initial conversation with me that they have to pick up their test at my desk. It's just go to your seat, be very discreet. If they don't want to take it, in my classroom because they don't want any additional stigma of like, and the pressure, I mean, regardless of what your intellectual state is, the pressure of being the last one done with your test is real. Like that's severe anxiety 101.
Getting accommodations and having to take a test in the hallway and everyone's changing classes and you are still taking an exam.
You just want to like crawl in a hole.
Crawl in a hole and never come out.
Having access to a private room, whether it be like an office space or, at colleges, it would be like the, student services center, like having those available places to take your test. Opt out of taking it in the classroom and take it in one of the centers, because most centers have individualized rooms for testing, and you would like sign up the day of your test. So they have that room blocked out for you. And you would have like unlimited time in that room. So you would have access to it. So I would definitely encourage, like, for those who are a little bit more reserved and don't like the extra eyes or attention, to like sign up for those rooms when you're at a university and make those connections if you're in high school with those teachers to be more discreet. So that it's either like at your seat, ready to go if you're running late, or it's at the desk, or you just, you have like the additional pages. You kind of give like a little like, what's up, head nod, like I need my new paper and whatnot. Like having those nonverbal cueings in building a relationship with your teacher is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I a big thing for students who don't have an illness or disabilities, I always remind them, is just they are the same exact kinds of students that you are. They just have a medical uniqueness to you. Yeah. And a lot of times as I actually got older, the more I used humor to kind of dodge the uncomfortableness or the insults people would make about what I needed medically. But as I started to do that and I didn't really allow them to interfere with my accommodations, people would always get very jealous of the things that I got. And so I kind of leaned into being, you wish you were chronically ill like me so you could get what I had, and kind of leading with that as a joke. I always say, even to all our young adults who have disabilities as well, they would always joke and go, you wish you could leave the classroom early like I do, because I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user, or I need to have space walking. So I can't be transitioning classes with everyone else. So I always will say that to people as well, that it's just medical uniqueness. It's not, I always say there's nothing that special about us except our bodies don't work at the quote unquote normal level. And that impacts you in the school system.
It's really hard to grasp when you don't see it. It adds an extra layer of difficulty for the outsider to fully comprehend, but it's also not our job to fully comprehend it. It's our job to be empathetic towards it and sympathetic towards it. And
like you said,
give them what they need.
Like an educator, it's really, it's being fair, not equal. It's accommodating or modifying. Yeah. It's not, you don't have to roll the red carpet out for someone who has a chronic illness or disability. It's modifying so that they get to do what everyone else does. And going off of that, guys, we are in our final segment with Erica. And as you know, I know. And in our final segments, as you know, once we started season 4, we're letting you guys get to know our special guests a bit more. And we're doing our getting to know you segments at the end. So Erica and I will be playing a very quick version of Illest Superlatives, where we as sisters will be giving each other superlatives. So get ready. Illest Superlatives. InvisiYouth. All right. So, Illest Superlative, besides your phone, what would be 2 things you think I would never leave the house without?
You?
Mm-hmm.
Probably your glasses, just in case.
I'm wearing contacts, everyone. Yes, I know, and coffee. as I have my coffee mug.
Yes, I was just gonna say, if you could take your whole family with you, that'd be it. But
I would say you would have a thumb ring and a hair tie.
Oh yeah, the hair has to go up.
Yeah, the hair has to go up. Erica's husband calls it her floofy is on top of her head.
My students draw me with it too.
They draw. Oh boy. What other time period do you think I would like living in?
Elvis Presley.
I was waiting. Very true. Very true. What time period for you? Oh man, I feel like you would love some like. Would you? I don't think you would like the future. Your husband Dave would love the future. Yeah, he would love like a floating, like a spaceship car thing and stuff like that.
Really into Bridgerton. So
I was gonna say Erica would love the Regency era for multiple reasons.
And I'm also like women's rights at the same time. So
it's catch-22.
It'd be the change.
What would be my signature dance move?
Oh, like that one. This little one. You keep it right here in like your little box.
I'm Hitch. I keep it in a
little box.
I keep it there in my box.
All here.
Erica.
Your face going up too.
Your favorite dance move. I mean, anything that's
we can say it on here.
I know. Anything that's like remotely Beyonce and or there is a movie with Jessica Alba from the early 2000s called Honey. Anything that looks like a backup dancer would be Erica, essentially.
Yeah.
A lot of booty movement, I always say, is an Erica dance move. Mm-hmm. Even in her wedding dress, that was a priority when we tried on wedding dresses for Erica, was that she had hip movement in her wedding dress. And she did.
My little kids on. I can move.
How would you describe my taste in music?
Oh, describe your taste in music. Well, we're all about the BTS and the K-pop. And then we also love like Elvis Presley. So I would say you're a mix between like those like nice, like smooth classics to those energizing, like mood changing, like upbeat ones.
Okay. I appreciate it. And you, loud club EDM music. If it does that, if the car shakes, it's the kind of music that Erica would enjoy 100%. Yes.
I actually have this really good one right now on Spotify. It's called Thick Thighs Runner Highs.
Oh
my God. It's all about the bump.
I just don't understand sometimes. I really don't. If we had matching tattoos, what would they be?
Oh, matching tattoos.
I've asked her to have matching tattoos for our listeners and go.
Didn't we talk about doing something with like a heart, like an open heart and like closing it or something?
Yeah, I have one.
Like the best friend type thing.
Yeah.
No, we talked about that. I mean, we always talked about like you getting like your smiley face and me getting like a yin and yang tattoo, but something together. I don't know.
So I would have to meet you halfway, since you would be taking the plunge to get a tattoo like I would. Anything Italian. We could have Sorella written somewhere on us.
Yes.
We'll do Italian. I'm not doing the Italian flag. You could never get me.
No, it has to be like that, like beautiful, like thin script.
Thin cursive. Yep. There we go.
Yeah. Dainty.
What is your favorite thing that we get to do as sisters?
Favorite thing just spend time together doing this, of course.
I like our car rides. I think we have very fun car rides.
Well, we do have very fun car rides. Only when you were late in high school, they weren't so fun. But
we had class at like 7 a.m. So
Dominic needed like an IV drip of coffee.
Yeah. I wish. Oh my Lord. If we were a duo act, what would our name be? Oh, wait, I have a better one. I'm editing this. If we were like a duo act, if we had a podcast as sisters, what would our show name be? Could also be the name of our band.
Sorella Diaries.
Sorella Diaries. That could work.
Could work.
Then people would be confused when we speak English.
I mean, we just need something catchy to learn them in.
That's true. That's true. I like it. I'll dig it. We'll do it.
I mean, I could rhyme and say Sorella Bellas.
Oh, here we go. Yep. Thought it was going to happen. Bring it in at the end. Bring it in. And our last one is what we ask everybody on the show. What is the best piece of advice you've given?
Be kind to yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. I would say that is probably the best advice. We all need to be kind to others, but especially ourselves. Just a little bit of forgiveness to yourself goes a long way.
It does.
To your happiness. It's the key. I found it finally. I've been searching for the key. No.
For 30 years.
I just picture you with a little cane. 30 years.
I finally found the key. Oh my God. Okay.
Don't joke. I can't do anything to save you.
No.
I have to call mom on my cell phone.
We can't. You're making a joke of using a cane in my elderly age, and I'm like, I've been using it since I was 20. So.
Don't you love the cane with the little seat I got you?
I do. I have 3 or 4 canes now. You need variety as a fashionista. Mm-hmm. Erica, it's the end of our episode.
Well, this is kind of sad. I finally got settled in. Maybe we should start now and then go on forward.
Oh, Lord, no.
I just needed some warm-up time for an hour.
We'll have a 2-hour episode.
I think we're entertaining. We're the Kardashians of the Veils.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you guys find the Veil sisters entertaining. I can bring Erica on more often, even on our Instagram lives as well. But I want everyone to be able to follow you on social media and the work that you're doing in education advocacy for special education. So where can our listeners and viewers find you?
So you could find on Instagram, you could find me. I'm the co-founder of Special Space in Our Heart. And I know Dominique was going to put it probably in the caption. It
will be in the description notes and
that's the right word. Clearly first timer. So you can follow us there. We enjoy more followers. It's with my grad school and teacher bestie, Nicole, and we have been running our Instagram together, just really trying to get out there and support families and individuals with special needs and being able to be part of that advocacy side and really bettering the lives of their families as well as students and helping those teachers. As well as being able to utilize all the tools out there that we just don't have the time to learn them all.
Exactly. If you like finding TikToks that are teachers,
I love TikTok.
You will see them repost those left, right, and center or share their own often. It's very, very fun for everybody. So like Erica had mentioned, the link of Special Space in Our Heart will be in the description notes and in the description below. And as always, you can follow InvisiYouth on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at InvisiYouth. And you can subscribe to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions on YouTube or on any audio podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast. We love the thumbs up, the 5-star ratings, because we hear the other stars don't work when it comes to our show. It's usually just the 4 or 5 stars that work. And
I don't know why you wouldn't get a 4 or 5 star.
I don't know. And writing those fun comments, because it really helps boost us in the algorithm in all places so more young people and their supporters can find us. So thank you again, Erica, for being my special guest on this episode.
Mwah. Mwah. Love you.
Love you. And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching. And I will speak with all of you soon. Bye, everyone.